This episode of Hot Cup Cold Case contains disturbing details about a violent crime and may not be appropriate for some listeners. Hey everybody, I'm Brant.
I'm Rachel.
And this is Hot Cup,
Cold Case,
where we share with you the two things that keep us up at night. And the first is a hot cup of caffeine, and the second is a cold case. So we've got our tea right here and our coffee. And this episode, I'm going to be sharing a story about a cold case that Rach knows nothing about. And actually, it's not really a cold case. It's just an unsolved case. But the investigation is still ongoing. And then, Rach, you're going to share a story about a closed case that I know nothing about.
Yep.
And then we'll end the episode with a short but strange criminal case we like to call a mugshot. But before we get to that, we want to share with you something very exciting that happened in our lives this week. And that is that our daughter developed an interest in detective work.
Oh, yes. Our 3-year-old. It was the proudest moment I've had yet.
She literally lost a piece to a puzzle. And she loves doing puzzles.
And we're talking jigsaw puzzle, people. And she's so good at them.
She really is. Well, I gave her a flashlight and we went in search of this missing puzzle piece. And from there, her love of finding missing things just blossomed. So it wasn't long before a search for a missing puzzle piece escalated.
Yeah, it was so cute. She was so excited and kept calling herself detective.
So now, one of her favorite games is when one of her stuffed animals goes missing, and we have to search for clues to find it. I even took her to Chuck E. Cheese recently, and when she got to cash in her tickets at the prize counter, she asked for the magnifying glass.
Again, proud moments in our life as podcasters.
I guess this is what happens when your parents are true crime podcasters. Oh, and then we introduced her to Blue's Clues, the old school kids show that we watched growing up, where Steve has to hunt for clues that his dog leaves to solve a mystery. And now she can't get enough of it.
She's so cute.
She is the cutest little private eye.
Yes.
Gumshoe.
So this past week, I was in Texas. I got to go down and surprise one of my best friends. She lives about 6 hours from my parents' house, so I just drove there, knocked on her door, and surprised her. So anyway, I was driving down the highway. I'm in the car alone, listening to my other true crime podcast, and I just see cooler after cooler after cooler. I saw at least 4.
What do you mean? Like just
like an ice
on the
chest.
side of the road?
Yeah, but all in like different spots, different makes, models, colors. But all I could think to myself was, what is in that cooler? Once you see the 4th one, you're just like, okay, did someone place that cooler there? Should I call the police and see if they've noticed these coolers on the side of the road?
You know, you never know. I actually did read an article once that talked about how close to roads bodies are normally found. And I think it's like within 100 feet.
Yeah, it's disturbing. That's what I think about when I'm driving now. Anytime I see the woods, a ditch.
That is true. Anytime we are driving together down the highway, my wife is always scanning the side of the road for bodies.
I don't know. It's just what pops into my mind. I hope to God I never find one. I think it would scar me for life.
Well, I can tell you exactly what it's like because I have seen a dead body on the road.
Yeah, I remember this story.
Yeah, I think we were dating at the time.
No, we were married.
Oh, were we?
We lived in our first apartment.
Well, I was driving down the road with a friend of mine, and we came upon the scene of an accident that emergency responders hadn't arrived at yet. And it was an accident involving a pickup truck. There was a gentleman, I guess he had been riding in the bed of the truck when the accident occurred, which had sent his body flying. And so he died on impact when he hit the road.
Oh my gosh.
And I can still see his face in my mind because as we were driving by, we looked into his dead eyes and my friend just started to weep.
Oh, it's so terrible.
Yeah. For like days after that, I was in
I
this
remember.
weird fog. It was very disturbing.
Yeah, I remember it really disturbed you.
Yeah,
Which it should. I mean, everyone should have that reaction to death. It's someone's life that's just been taken away.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for emergency responders.
I thought you were talking about the gravel thing. That's what I thought you were going to say.
What gravel thing? Oh, God.
So you've seen 2?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I didn't know that.
Well, anyways, that was a weird rabbit trail.
Yes, it was.
But I am glad you're back from Texas. I missed you guys terribly. And I did cross something off my bucket list while you guys were gone.
Do tell.
Well, I'm not proud of it.
Oh, no.
It's something that when a teenager tells you they've done this, it's cute. But like when somebody in their 30s tells you, it's just sad.
Oh, gosh. Where are we going with this?
I saw an opportunity this past week while you were gone, and I seized it to sneak into a movie for the first time in my life.
I always love bad boys, babe.
I remember you told me that for the first time when we were dating, and I tried so hard to be a bad boy for you, but it just wasn't in me and my Christian upbringing.
I never liked bad boys. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, whatever. You have this weird love for Eminem.
Okay, it's not a weird love. It's more of an interest in his life.
He's a bad boy, and you like it.
I do not love him.
Okay, Rachel.
I've only loved you. That is it. You were my first kiss.
You couldn't have the real Slim Shady, so you just settled for Slim.
Oh, God, you're so stupid.
Me and my skinny self.
Oh, my gosh. Brand. Okay, moving on.
Well, during my brief time as an outlaw, I started thinking.
I just rolled my eyes for those of you who obviously cannot see me.
I started thinking, what are the weirdest things people have ever smuggled into a movie theater? And so I decided to ask the question on our Facebook and Instagram, and I want to share with you some of the answers we got.
Oh, they're hilarious. I had to already creep on them.
They're pretty great. At Marcy McGarry said, either a 32-ounce Slurpee or a burrito. And actually, quite a number of people said they smuggle in fast food.
Mm-hmm.
At The Jordan Deal took it to the next level, though. He said he smuggled in Chick-fil-A for like 9 people. And he said, I'm still not sure how I pulled that one off.
I don't either. I've never smuggled in fast food. It's only been candy and drinks.
I smuggle in soft drinks all the time, like in the 12-ounce cans. And I always wait for an explosion during the trailers to pop the tab. Because I'm afraid someone's going to like arrest me or something if they hear it. But at Yvonne J.W. said, def known to smuggle in bags of fast food, even regular dinner that I've cooked and eaten in the theater with a real metal fork.
Yeah, it's hilarious. We really need to up our game.
I know, right? Well, at Nautical Mama 10 said, I didn't do it, but my friend smuggled in an entire plate full of barbecue ribs.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thanks everybody for sharing. We really enjoyed your stories.
Oh, but wait, I remember what sparked this whole conversation. I was on this Facebook group for people that are obsessed with Aldi, the grocery store, and someone shared a picture of them in a movie theater with a charcuterie board that they smuggled in.
With like assorted meats and cheeses?
Yes! And crackers! She brought in the whole board. Like, where did she put it?
That is weird. And also high class.
Yeah, they were in a nice theater, too. It was like the leather reclining seats.
The icing on the cake would have been if she pulled out a nice Merlot to pair it with and like poured it into a wine glass. What movie was she seeing?
I know. I wish I would have asked.
My friends and I went to see the midnight premiere of Peter Jackson's King Kong movie back in 2005. Do you remember that one?
No. Would you like me to change my answer
No.
to yes?
No, that's okay.
I don't know.
No, it's okay. So my friends and I went to see Peter Jackson's King Kong movie, and I've always been a Kong fan ever since I was a kid. Rach, you know this. In fact, you recently made me throw away one of my favorite pair of King Kong underwear that I've had since high school.
It's old and falling apart. Literally, the elastic is gone.
It was literally hanging on by a thread, but I loved them. Well, anyways, a friend of mine had a gorilla suit, and he let me borrow it for the movie premiere. So that night, I suited up and smuggled everyone's candy and drinks inside of my gorilla suit. And as my friends and I were waiting in line outside the theater, I suddenly recognized the legendary gospel singer Kirk Franklin was in line with us. And for those of you who don't know who Kirk Franklin is, just YouTube his song Stomp. That was the soundtrack of my childhood.
Mine too. It was so great.
Well, I knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I wanted to get his autograph. But the problem was I couldn't take off the gorilla suit because it was hiding all of the candy. So I literally walked up to Kirk Franklin in a gorilla suit and asked him for an autograph. And he was so kind. He was trying so hard not to point out how awkward the whole situation really was. He's just a real class act. In fact, I think I saw him pull out a charcuterie board later in the movie. Well, I didn't have anything for him to sign either, so I literally asked him to autograph a dollar bill.
Do you still have it?
No, I gave it away to a girl that I liked. And the worst part is, she didn't even know who Kirk Franklin was.
What a noob.
Yeah, to be honest, it made me want to stomp, lift my hands up and stomp.
No, don't. Do not add that in there. Oh my God. It's not a joke.
Probably the whitest impersonation of a black gospel singer you've ever heard.
Oh God. Do you have a cold case for me, buddy?
I do.
Okay.
This case is currently under investigation and involves disturbing allegations that have recently been brought against a former podcaster.
Okay.
This is the case of Lori Vallow
Brant
and
Russell.
her missing children, Tylee and JJ.
Okay, you stole that from me. I was gonna do this on the next cold case I have. You're a thief.
I told you, I'm an outlaw.
Oh my gosh. So this is what happens when we surprise each other sometimes. So I had already started some of my notes on this. So I'll be more than happy to point out if any of your facts are wrong.
Well, apparently there was an episode on Dateline about this case recently. I have not seen that episode. So...
I did.
Oh, did you?
I did. I watched it with my mom in Texas.
Okay, so you can share anything that I don't cover. So, on November 26th, 2019, police in Rexburg, Idaho received a phone call from an older couple requesting an officer perform a welfare check on their grandkids, Tylee and JJ. The couple said that they typically talked with their grandkids over FaceTime multiple times a week, and they were concerned because they hadn't been able to reach them for nearly a month. So officers were dispatched to Tylee and JJ's house, where their parents, Lori and Chad Daybell, answered the door. The officers explained why they were there and asked the couple if they could speak with their kids. And to be clear, Tylee and JJ were not Chad's kids. They were kids that Lori had from previous marriages. Lori and Chad then informed the officers that Tylee and JJ weren't there because they were staying with family in Arizona. Their explanation seemed reasonable, but after leaving the residence, the officers decided to follow up with Tylee and JJ's extended family in Arizona. But family members in Arizona told police that the kids weren't with them either, and they had no idea what Lori and Chad were talking about. So police obtained a search warrant and returned to Lori and Chad's home the following day. To their surprise, Lori and Chad had vanished. And after speaking with a few other residents on the block, police learned that shortly after their welfare check the day before, neighbors had witnessed Lori and Chad loading bags into their truck and leaving town.
Someone's hiding something.
Yeah, it seems really suspicious. And as of the date of this recording, February 2019, Tylee and JJ are still missing. Several family members connected to Lori have turned up dead, and both Lori and Chad have refused to cooperate with the police investigation, and Lori has now been arrested. So this is an ongoing investigation, and although it's not a cold case, it's currently unsolved. So I'm going to be following this case, and I'll continue to update everyone in future episodes as new details become available. But here is everything we know so far. So back in 2000, Lori married a man named Joseph Ryan, and together they had a daughter, Tylee Ryan. But a few years into their marriage, Lori and Joseph filed for divorce, and Lori moved to Arizona in 2004. Joseph soon followed because he wanted to be close to his daughter Tylee, while he and Lori disputed a child custody suit. A couple years later, in 2006, Lori married another man named Charles Vallow, and together they adopted a son, Joshua, or JJ, who was also diagnosed with autism. And JJ's grandparents said he was an extremely intelligent boy who was both reading and doing math by the time he was 3 years old.
That's crazy.
Lori was a devout Mormon, and over the course of the next 10 years, she became a part-time host of a podcast created specifically for Mormon women. And she began reading novels by a self-published author named Chad Daybell, who wrote several fictional books about Mormon-themed post-apocalyptic events and an autobiography detailing some of his near-death experiences. Then, in 2018, Tylee's world was suddenly shattered when her father, which was Lori's first husband, Joseph Ryan, was found dead in his apartment of an apparent heart attack. Joseph's neighbor had called police and asked them to perform a welfare check after smelling a foul odor emanating from Joseph's residence.
Oh, gosh.
And around this time, Lori asked Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing, who was Joseph's sister, to come and visit Tylee, who was grieving the death of her father.
Right.
When Annie was returning home from the trip, she texted some of her family members about her visit with Lori and said, quote, "It was absolutely exhausting. I dealt with so many lies, even with little things. I think she's unhinged and untethered from truth."
Well, that's terrifying.
And then Annie said, "When I got there, it was as if nothing had happened. People were hardly talking about Joe. And when Lori did, she would actually say, 'The world is a better place without Joe Ryan.'" So Kay Woodcock, who is Lori's other sister-in-law, this is Charles Vallow's sister, said that Lori once told her Joe was dead because, quote, "God took him, and it's just as well because he was an evil, evil person," end quote.
That's crazy.
So she obviously did not like her ex-husband Joe.
Right.
But Kay also said that Lori was, quote, "a wonderful, loving, attentive mother." That is, until she became involved with a Mormon organization called Preparing a People, which is a religious doomsday prepper group that some members of Lori's family have called a cult. And that is where she met the author of those end-time novels she adored, Chad Daybell. So I actually went to their website at preparingapeople.com to learn more about their beliefs, but all I found was a single landing page with an official statement from the organization calling for all investigative journalists to cease and desist any reporting that suggests their organization had anything to do with the criminal allegations recently brought against Lori and Chad. So they are trying to disassociate themselves from this case as much as possible.
Oh, of course they are.
And this is a quote from their landing page. "Like everyone, we are deeply disturbed over media reports involving Mr. Daybell and his new wife, Lori Vallow, and her 2 missing children. Lori Vallow appeared on some podcasts submitted by our podcast network partners. We learned of the missing children Friday, December 20th of 2019, along with everyone else via news articles. We also do not share any of Chad Daybell's or Lori Vallow's beliefs if they are contrary to Christian principles of honesty, integrity, and truth, or if they do not align with the doctrines of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We are cooperating with law enforcement and ask anybody who has information that could assist investigators to please contact them." End quote.
Well, wise of them.
Yes, they are claiming that they had nothing to do with anything that's happening in or around Lori Vallow's life. So this is a very confusing story.
Yes,
and
it is.
I want to try to help you understand. I'll get to what happened to Charles Vallow, Lori's second husband, in just a moment.
Okay.
But I want to back up and talk about Chad Daybell, her latest husband, for just a moment, because I want to talk about how they met and how that kind of played a role in the end of her marriage to Charles Vallow.
Okay, gotcha.
So here are some details about Chad Daybell. In his 2017 autobiography, which is called Living on the Edge of Heaven, Chad talks about his upbringing in the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, as well as a couple near-death experiences that changed his life. His first near-death experience happened when he was 17 years old, and he said that while he was cliff jumping with some of his friends, that it felt like his head hit concrete, and he realized, quote, "My spirit was partly out of my body." And then he said that he, quote, "crossed into another dimension and realized there was a world beyond this one." And then he said, quote, "During those few moments, I could see on the other side of the veil an endless white plain in all directions. I also felt tangible energy particles of knowledge rushing toward me from all directions. I just soaked it all in." End quote.
Okay.
So after high school, he got a job working as a cemetery worker. And eventually he went on mission, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the Mormon faith, I am because my cousin's a Mormon. But a mission is a 2-year period in which a person leaves their home to travel and teach others about the Mormon faith. So after Chad returned home from his mission, he began dating a girl named Tammy, who he had known from high school. And 10 weeks into their relationship, he proposed. And the two were married by March 1990. They went on to have 5 children together. And it was during this time in his life that Chad had his second near-death experience. He was swimming near a rock formation on La Jolla Cove in California when a 15-foot wave suddenly caught him by surprise. And Chad wrote that a voice told him to cling to the rocks as the wave came crashing over him. He said, quote, "Then my surroundings changed and I found myself in the proverbial tunnel of light. It wasn't bright white light, but more like a yellow heat lamp." It's at this point that I would be worried if the light at the end of the tunnel is not white, but yellow and warm,
Right.
like the flames of hell.
Right.
Okay.
A heat lamp.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
bless.
Chad said, quote, "It felt like I was wrapped in a warm blanket or a cocoon, and I felt extremely happy." And then Chad said he saw his grandfather who, quote, "explained the tasks I needed to accomplish and asked if I would be willing to fulfill the assignments he had outlined, and I agreed to do so." And then Chad said the accident caused his veil, air quotes, that separates mortal life from the spirit world to stay partially open, so he now often feels as if he has a foot in both worlds.
Okay.
Are you tracking with me?
I am. I hope other people are.
Okay. So Chad was working at a Mormon book publisher at the time, and he left to start his own publishing company. And he eventually began self-publishing those post-apocalyptic novels that Lori would come to love. So I actually went to his website,
No.
cdaybell.com, and I found a really strange post from Chad regarding a novel he wrote back in the 1990s called Escape to Zion. Did they talk about Chad's visions on Dateline?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, buckle up. So Chad says on his website, "In the late 1990s, as I was writing my novel Escape to Zion, I began having many dreams and visions relating to my family's future. For example, one night I had a vivid dream that Tammy had taken the kids to the Spanish Fork Kmart. In the dream, I watched Tammy lead the kids across the parking lot to the store entrance. Then, little Seth broke free and stumbled ahead of the others. I distinctly noted he was wearing a particular pair of blue overalls. Just then, a blue Cadillac, driven by a Polynesian man, came speeding by and ran over Seth,
Oh, God.
killing him instantly. The dream obviously disturbed me, but I had to leave for work before Tammy woke up. So later that morning, I called her. Before I could even tell her about the dream, she said, "I've got the kids ready, and I'm taking them to Kmart."
Oh.
I immediately asked what Seth was wearing, and she said, "Blue overalls."
Oh, that's crazy.
I told her about the dream, and we agreed I should go to the store with them. They picked me up at the cemetery, and I carried Seth into the store. Everything was exactly as I had seen it in the dream in terms of the angle of the sun, and so on. We didn't see a blue Cadillac, though. I believe we altered the timeline by a few minutes when Tammy picked me up to go with them. I have no doubt it was a warning dream sent straight from heaven.
I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And then Chad posted this. Another dream I kept having at this time was that the Twin Towers were burning. And Chad is actually talking about the World Trade Centers in New York that were attacked by terrorists back in 2001.
On 9/11.
But during the time he was writing this book, it hadn't happened yet. And Chad said, in the dreams, I was always on the street below the towers. They were both on fire and people were running and screaming. I didn't know the cause. From my vantage point, it seemed like all of Manhattan was on fire. I even included what I had seen in the book, Escape to Zion. And in the book, the main character, Emma, is in the future and she reads an old newspaper about the Twin Towers being burned. So it kind of threw me for a loop when it actually happened a year later.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Isn't that wild? And that book is actually available on Amazon.
We are not promoting that book.
I'm not promoting it, but it does have great reviews. Although there is a couple that say, Chad, where are the kids?
What?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Isn't that scary?
Yes.
So then the economic recession of the early 2000s caused Chad's book sales to stall. And he said that the financial crisis impacted he and Tammy's marriage as well. And that's when she began spending a lot of time alone playing a video game called Frontierville. And Chad said that he received a vision at this time from Tammy's grandma, who told him to, quote, have Tammy quit her damn computer game cold turkey. Okay, rude.
Okay.
Rach, didn't you used to be addicted to that arcade game DDR?
Yes.
Dance
it
Dance
was so
Revolution?
great. I had it at home.
One of my greatest regrets in life is that I did not meet you when you were in your DDR prime.
Hey, it was great. If they still made it, I would totally do it to work out.
I think they still have one at the Dave & Buster's down the road.
Okay, I'm not going there. I'm going to be like this middle-aged woman trying to be in her prime again.
You know what? I'm putting this on the bucket list.
Okay, please.
It's going right above sneak into a movie theater.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Okay.
I sure will.
Guys, if I can get Rach on a DDR machine in the near future, I promise to videotape this covertly and publish it on our social media.
I will kill you. Just let me practice for a little bit. I was pretty good. Now I'm going to look on eBay.
Guys, I'm so excited right now. So anyway, Tammy's grandma tells Chad to tell Tammy to quit playing her damn computer game.
Rude.
So then in 2015, Chad says that he received another vision of a catastrophic earthquake occurring near his California residence, which prompted him to relocate their entire family to Rexburg, Idaho. And that's when he joined that religious doomsday prepper group, Preparing a People, through which he also met one of his biggest fans, Lori Vallow.
Of course.
And the two even hosted an episode of the organization's podcast together, which I did check, and the episode is no longer available. So that's when Lori's marriage to Charles, back in Arizona, began to fall apart.
Okay.
And Annie Cushing, remember Tylee's aunt who had helped her grieve the death of her father?
Yes.
Well, she said that Lori had always been religious, but it was around this time that she became completely obsessed with the end times. In a TV interview, she told journalists, quote, it's like she wanted me to be afraid of the end times. There was one time where she was talking about it and she said, sometimes I think it would be better just to put my kids in a car and go off the side of a cliff, end quote.
Yeah, you can't say stuff like that.
Yeah. So Lori's husband, Charles, said that she had, quote, become infatuated and at times obsessive about near-death experiences and spiritual visions. He claims he tried to get her help, but she refused to visit a doctor because, quote, they would discover that she is a translated being who cannot taste death, end quote.
Okay.
Yeah, so Charles claims that around this time, Lori also didn't want anything to do with either him or JJ, quote, because she had more important mission to carry out. And Charles said that Lori believed she had, quote, lived numerous lives on numerous planets prior to this current life, and that she was a god assigned to carry out the work of the 144,000 at Christ's second coming in July 2020.
Right.
So then on Valentine's Day, 2019, Charles decided to file for divorce. Lori responded to Charles by telling him that she would kill him if he got in her way, and that she, quote, had an angel to help her dispose of the body.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
So Charles immediately took out an order of protection against Lori, stating, quote, I want to make sure that everyone knows that if something happens to me, Lori and her brother Alex did it.
Yeah, that's so disturbing.
Yeah, especially if you know where I'm going.
And I do.
Well, then, for unknown reasons, Charles eventually changed his mind about divorcing Lori and rescinded his protection order.
Yeah, that's one thing I couldn't figure out from the research that I did, is why he did that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because he and Lori then signed a new lease together. But several months into their new lease, on July 10th of 2019, Charles texted their landlord stating that he had intended to find somewhere else to live. The very next day, Charles was shot and killed by none other than Lori's brother Alex.
In the home.
Yes, and Alex told police he and Charles had gotten into a fight and that he shot Charles twice in the chest out of self-defense.
So, did you hear about the pool party?
No.
Apparently, the day Charles was shot and killed, Lori had a pool party planned at her home as like a housewarming party.
Uh-huh.
She still did it.
What?
Yes.
You're kidding me.
No, that's what Dateline covered, is that she had that pool party the day of.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's footage of her being questioned by police officers in front of her house, like in reference to like them being new to the neighborhood. And at one point she smirks and she's like, well, welcome to the neighborhood or something like that.
Can you imagine
No.
being one of the neighbors at that pool party?
No.
And Lori being like, welcome to my house. There's drinks in the fridge. Just make sure you go through the living room because the front room's a crime scene. It's so bizarre.
It's so disturbing.
Well, a few weeks later, this is August 2019 now, Lori, her brother Alex, and the kids all moved to Idaho, where Lori's favorite author and her friend, Chad Daybell, were now living with his family. Meanwhile, one of Chad's close friends, her name is Julie Rowe, she remembers a phone conversation she had with Chad around this time when Lori moved to the state.
Okay.
And Chad talked about a vision he had received that his wife, Tammy, was going to die.
Oh, him and these visions.
So on September 23rd, 2019, after Lori and Alex and the kids had moved to Idaho, Lori emailed JJ's elementary school and said she was picking up her son because she had accepted an out-of-state job offer and they needed to move quickly. Which was weird because she had just moved there.
Right. Yeah, that's so weird.
But the next day, Lori came back to the school without JJ and filled out the necessary paperwork to disenroll him and told administrators that she was just planning on homeschooling her son.
So one of the things that you didn't mention was due to JJ's autism, they had a very specific service dog for him.
Uh-huh.
And JJ and this dog were inseparable. And once they moved, she posted on Facebook to sell the dog.
Oh, weird.
Mm-hmm. And you don't just sell a service dog on Facebook. You know, it's like specifically matched with who you are,
Right.
like with your needs. So it was very, very strange. And if you still had your son, why would you be selling his service dog who he cannot literally do life without?
Yeah. Then, on October 9th of 2019, Chad's wife, Tammy, posted this really weird Facebook post. It says, quote, something really weird just happened and I want you to know so you can watch out. I had gotten home and parked in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I didn't think it was loaded. I yelled for Chad and he ran off around the back of my house. I have no idea what his motive was, and he never spoke. Even after I asked him several times what he thought he was doing, I was about to smack him with my freezer meals when I decided to yell for Chad instead. Isn't that weird? Especially when you learn that 10 days later, on October 19th, Chad's quote-unquote vision of his wife's death suddenly came true. Because at 49 years old and without any known pre-existing medical conditions, Tammy Daybell suddenly died of, quote, natural causes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Very strange. Well, within a couple weeks, Lori and Chad got married.
Yeah, it just blew my mind.
So her kids haven't been seen since JJ was disenrolled from school, and Tammy is now dead. Also during this time, an Idaho storage facility called Self Storage Plus called police when Lori failed to pay rent for her storage unit. And when police arrived and performed a search of the unit, they found that it was filled with Tylee and JJ's belongings.
Right.
And something else happened around this time that may or may not be connected, but it is really weird. Lori's nephew, Brandon Boudreaux, was driving the Jeep that was registered to Charles Vallow, who had recently died.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon was randomly shot at by an unknown assailant. And he believes that the attack is somehow connected with Charles' death, since he was driving Charles' Jeep at the time, and the children's disappearance.
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't know about him.
Yeah, just kind of weird. So on November 26th, 2019, just weeks into Chad and Lori's new marriage, that's when police arrived at their house to perform that welfare check at the request of Tylee and JJ's grandparents, and after which the two left town. So Shane Turman, the chief of Rexburg Police, said Lori, quote, has refused to work with law enforcement to help us resolve this matter. It is astonishing that rather than work with law enforcement to help us locate her own children, Lori has chosen instead to leave the state with her new husband, end quote. By December 11th, 2019, police were beginning to question whether Chad's wife, Tammy, had actually died of natural causes as originally reported. So they exhumed her body for autopsy. And we're actually still awaiting their findings. They haven't been released yet. Then, the day after they exhumed her body, Lori's brother Alex, who had allegedly shot and killed her ex-husband Charles, suddenly turns up dead as well. Police received a phone call from a 25-year-old man who said he was the son of Alex's girlfriend and that he had found Alex passed out at home in his bathroom. And police are still investigating his death too.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So Tylee and JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, who I mentioned earlier, have offered a $20,000 reward for any information leading to the discovery of their grandchildren. Then on January 25th of this year, 2020, police spotted Lori and Chad driving near a beachside resort in Kauai and served them with a court order requiring them to produce Tylee and JJ within 5 days.
The Dateline video shows them laughing and running on the beach together and getting married, and it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's like they're honeymooning.
He got married to Lori like a week after his wife died, right?
Right.
It's so bizarre. It ain't right.
It's not right. Well, 5 days later, on January 30th, Lori failed to produce her children. To this day, she has never even reported her children missing and has not cooperated with any search efforts to find them. And in a statement to the press, Rexburg police said, quote, "We strongly believe that Joshua and Tylee's lives are in danger."
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Hawaii police acquired a search warrant for Lori and Chad's vehicle and their residence, and they found a cell phone belonging to Lori's missing daughter, Tylee. And on that cell phone, they found a text message that was sent in October. And that would be a month after Tylee was last seen. And the text message was sent to one of Tylee's friends, and it simply read, "Hi, miss you guys too. Love ya," which Tylee's friend who received that message said seemed really weird. And investigators also found 2 small Venmo payments that were made to a family member. As of Thursday, February 20th of 2020, Hawaii police finally arrested Lori on 2 felony child desertion charges, resisting or obstructing an investigation, contempt of court, and criminal solicitation to commit a crime. And Kauai officials do not believe that Tylee and JJ were ever on the island. So, as of right now, that is all we know. And Chad's friend, Julie Rowe, says that she has not heard from Chad himself, but she believes both Tylee and JJ are safe based on her visions.
Oh, gosh.
She said, quote, "I do know the kids are safe. I can see them. I can see their energy, and they're in a bright house. I can see they're in the living room where they are. I can see they're in a comfortable bed at night." End quote. But Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing, said, quote, "The chances of Tylee and JJ being alive are extremely remote. Nothing that Lori is doing is in any way indicative of a parent who just has her children safely tucked away."
Yeah, it's
End
very
quote.
weird.
So set your Google alerts because this is an ongoing investigation and we'll keep you updated in future episodes. But that is the unsolved case of Lori Vallow and her missing children, Tylee and JJ.
Tonight, I have a closed case for you, but it has been cold for 36 years.
Oh, it was recently closed?
Yes. The police just finally were able to close the case.
Wow.
I know. It's pretty crazy. So this case is the story of Julie Fuller, who went missing in Arlington, Texas in 1983.
Hey, that's your hometown.
Yes, I know. It's so disturbing. And my mom is a true crime lover as well. And I remember when we went home at Christmas, she showed me this handwritten note she jotted down. And it was this case because they had closed it right around Christmas. And so I kept it in my back pocket and didn't tell you about it so I could do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is weird to describe people as true crime lovers.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not shaming you at all because I think one of the most iconic board games ever created was Clue.
Right.
And one of the top ranking movies on Rotten Tomatoes this year was Knives Out.
Right,
So
right.
it's funny when people are like, I don't understand your fascination with true crime. Also, do you want to go see Knives Out? Maybe come over and play Clue later?
Right. I guess I could say I always grew up as a mystery lover. Maybe not so much true crime until I was old enough to understand, I guess. So anyway, Julie was an 11-year-old girl who just moved to the States from the UK. Her parents and older brother came to Texas seeking a better life.
They came from the UK seeking a better life in Texas?
I know. I don't understand either.
That seems bass-ackwards.
I don't understand it either.
Speaking as someone who grew up in Texas and
Right.
has always longed to go to the UK.
Right. So, not knowing the area too well, her parents, Colin and Janet, moved their kids to the Kensington Motel in Arlington, Texas. The process wasn't complete on finding a home to purchase, and they were temporarily living in the motel. The kids were enjoying their new home in America and loving that their motel had a swimming pool. They were immersed in video games, the different accents of those around them, drive-through fast food restaurants. I read in so many articles that these kids loved the fact that you could do a drive-through fast food place. I don't know if in 1983 that wasn't a thing in the UK, but they thought it was super cool.
Well, if you think drive-thrus are cool, I guess Texas would be like the promised land.
On June 27th, 1983, the family was preparing to go out to eat to celebrate Colin, the father's first paycheck, with his new job as an electrician. They came here and neither one of them had jobs yet. So for him to finally get his first paycheck, it was very exciting for them. Well, the family was still getting ready and 11-year-old Julie walked outside barefoot to take the trash out. Her parents and 13-year-old brother Lee were starting to get a little concerned when it had been several minutes and she still hadn't come back. Because it should have taken 1 minute 2 minutes max to take the trash out because the dumpster was right next to their door. And the brother and the mom are getting like really irritated. Like, what is she doing? Like, we have to go. Where is she? You know what you would probably first do? Like, where's my kid? They're going to be in so much trouble when I find them. You know, I'm scared to death. So at this point, they're starting to get very scared. So they are running outside, yelling her name, because they never would have thought that their kid would be gone.
Right.
But she never came back.
Oh my God. She disappeared within a matter of minutes?
Minutes. So the family had only been in the States for 1 month at this point. Like, they had not been here very long. And they don't know anyone here. And it's becoming very scary very quickly that their child is gone. She just vanished from taking the trash out.
So there's no family members who she might be with?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. That is really scary.
So obviously they called the police. The police came and neighbors in the motels were starting to search for Julie too. So taking the trash out, Julie would have just had to walk to the dumpster. But it's guessed that that dumpster was full, so she was probably looking to find the next one.
Okay.
But the next closest one wasn't close. It was like on the backside of the motel. So everyone's thinking that would have probably been when she vanished. Does that make sense?
Oh my God.
So the very next day, Julie's body was discovered by construction workers close to the Trinity River in Fort Worth, Texas. She was nude and there was signs of sexual assault and she was strangled.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Was someone just waiting outside of this motel? She was only out there for a few minutes.
Just a few minutes.
And they were barely in the States long enough to make any enemies.
Right.
So the suspect could be anyone.
Literally anyone. And there was DNA left at the scene.
Oh, really?
Yes, but no other evidence or clues. And at this point in 1983, there had not been much advancement in technology. So, like I said before, the case went cold for 36 years.
Wow, that is haunting.
Yeah, it's absolutely disturbing. So Lee, her 13-year-old brother, says he still looks back and he blames himself for letting her go alone.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But again, she was supposed to be gone 1 minute, 2 minutes tops. Never suspecting anything like this could happen to them. He struggles with the guilt and the emotion of his sister still being gone, and it's still very raw. And he's 49, and he was 13 then. So, I mean, it's just so long to carry that. So Julie's body was laid to rest in the Moore Memorial Garden Cemetery in Arlington, Texas. Quickly after the case went cold, the Fullers moved back to the UK, leaving their precious girl behind.
Oh, I can't even.
I know, I can't imagine either, and I really questioned a lot of that when I read it, but I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine being a completely different country as the rest of my friends and family.
So they couldn't go visit her?
Right.
And if they didn't have any family here, then no one went and visited her.
Right. So Lee explains that this part was extremely hard for his mother.
Yeah.
And it was hard for his father too, but the States just held so much devastation for them, and his father just wanted to leave immediately. He was quoted saying that this is not the American dream. This is a nightmare. Side note, when I was doing research for this case, I thought that cemetery sounded really familiar. Well, it is because my aunt is buried there.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so I visited this cemetery many times and had no idea that while I was visiting my aunt, this poor girl was laid to rest there with no answers.
Wow.
It's just so sad. Like, I can't imagine leaving my child behind. So I hope someone has visited her over the years. When we go home, we'll have to go visit the cemetery. So the case has had a few leads over the years, but nothing ever panned out. In February 2018, the homicide investigators still working on the case reached out to the Parabon Nanolabs and obtained a DNA phenotyping report, which is a tool used to predict physical appearance and ancestry from unidentified DNA evidence.
Oh, I've heard of this group. They have technology that can basically construct a face from DNA.
I don't know how they do it. It is the craziest thing ever. I've seen it on Dateline a few times. They know like your race. They know like what your hair color would be, your eye color. And they were able to get a composite sketch of what he would look like. But Lee, Colin, and Janet had no idea who this man was. Now, this was like 35 years later, but it didn't ring a bell. No one looked familiar. It meant nothing to them. And so the case went cold again. However, in December 13th of 2019, after the DNA was entered into a genetic genealogy database, the police located a match to a distant relative of Fuller's killer who submitted their DNA to one of those DNA type websites.
Amazing.
You know, you can like send it off and get your ancestry and all that stuff.
Like how they caught the Golden State Killer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So police contacted the family member and were able to narrow the killer down to James McNichols, who died in 2004 at 52 years old, 15 years ago, when he was living in Iowa.
Wow. So was he in Texas during the time of this girl's disappearance?
So at the time of Fuller's murder, he was living in the area. McNichols had a record, but his DNA was never entered into a criminal database. And there isn't much information regarding McNichols. And I don't know how he died either. I have looked all over the internet for stuff about this man, and I cannot find anything. He had a record, but I don't know what it entailed. So 36 years, this case went ice cold. And then last December, just a couple months ago, they were able to find her killer because someone in his family submitted their DNA to an ancestry website.
I'm glad that investigators were able to figure out who the killer is, but I'm still frustrated because he never had to face justice for what he did.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At least not in a court of law. What a monster.
Yes, so that is the tragic disappearance of Julie Fuller. So the parents ended up getting a divorce. Her mom and her brother actually live in the States. They live in Virginia, so they do visit her grave.
Oh, okay. It's just scary to think that by doing something as simple as taking out the trash on a normal weekday night, you could be taking your life in your hands.
Right, absolutely.
So I have a mugshot story for you. And normally I try to share stories that are kind of funny, but I saw this story in the news this week, and it is just disturbing.
Oh, we have no light. An airy one this time?
Yeah, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. It's that warm yellow feeling
Oh, gosh.
Chad Daybell was talking about.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
This one is actually about a woman who ran for mayor in Colorado Springs last year. So, the mother of a newborn baby in Washington State recently came across a post on Facebook by an amateur photographer who was offering free maternity and/or newborn photos.
I don't like where this is going already.
The post was published by a woman who stated she was simply searching for opportunities to build her portfolio. So the Washington mom booked a session and invited the amateur photographer to her house. The woman is 38-year-old Juliet Parker. She arrives at the house with her 16-year-old daughter, and the two begin taking photos of the mom and her baby. But the mother of the baby began to grow suspicious when she caught Juliet taking selfies with her child.
What?
And then she noticed Juliet wiping her fingerprints off anything in the house she had touched.
What?
Yes. Juliet and her daughter then offered the mom some cupcakes they had brought with them.
Oh, no.
And she ate one.
If she already had some suspicions, why would you then take food from them?
Not long afterward, she began to get drowsy and suddenly began vomiting, at which point she asked both of them to leave, and she immediately called 911. And while she's on the phone with 911, she notices something else that's odd. Her house keys are suddenly missing. So Juliet and her daughter leave, and the mother is rushed to the hospital.
With the baby?
Yes.
Okay.
But the baby's fine, and the mom makes a full recovery. But investigators soon followed up on her 911 call and tracked Juliet and her daughter to their house 40 miles south of Seattle. Juliet Parker, who ran for mayor last year in 2019, was arrested this weekend and charged with lacing her cupcakes and trying to kidnap a 3-week-old baby.
No.
After her arrest, police received more than 10 other reports of people claiming they had also invited Juliet into their homes, and detectives now believe she has been searching for a newborn baby to kidnap for quite some time.
No.
Ed Troyer of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department said, quote, "She wanted a girl. She wanted them 5 weeks and younger so she could raise it herself, take it out of state, and pretend it was a newborn of her own."
No.
One of the potential victims was a mom named Victoria Morris, and she had responded to Juliet's Facebook post as well. And she said that when Juliet arrived at her house, she used her sleeve to open the front door, to keep her fingerprints off the property.
Weird. Just wear gloves.
And then when she came into the house, she wouldn't even sit in a chair. She sat on the ground. And Morris also said Juliet was supposed to be in the delivery room with her when she gave birth, but it just so happened that she went into labor the same day Juliet was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping of that other child.
My Lord.
And by the way, during Juliet's mayoral campaign last year, this is how she described herself: honest, good moral code and compass, caring, respectful, smart, understanding, common sense, passionate, ethics, and the ability to think outside the box.
Oh my gosh.
I'll give her that one. Isn't that crazy?
I knew this was not going anywhere good.
Yeah. And police haven't really released any details about her daughter's involvement because she's a minor. She's only 16. But they believe that the two were working together.
Like, that's nuts. Just a reminder, we love reading stories from our listeners about some of your most frightening experiences. So if you have a story that you want us to share on the podcast, please send it to us at hotcupcoldcasepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and even if you don't have a story, please share the podcast with your friends and encourage them to listen. Rach and I recently discovered that you can airdrop an episode of a podcast with anybody that's nearby. So next time you're at the movies or the airport and someone tries to airdrop you an episode of Hot Cup Cold Case Podcast, it was probably Rach or I.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting next to you.
Also, if you're enjoying the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and other streaming services. The more 5-star ratings we get, the easier it becomes for more people to find us in podcast directories.
And finally, for even more things to keep you up at night, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hot Cup Cold Case Podcast, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Hot Cup Cold Case is written and produced by Brant, myself, with music by Young Kool-Aid.
If you ever need your mug filled,
or your spine chilled,
this is Hot Cup
Cold Case. Hey, you didn't laugh. I thought that was so
what did you
funny.
Say? What did you say?
I said I have avid memories of watching Dateline with my mom and Lost. And I said Lost is its own type of cold case because it had a terrible ending.
Oh, I didn't get it.
It's funny. Lost it built up for like 12 years and had the worst ending ever.
The joke isn't funny if you have to explain it.
It is funny. It's hilarious.
I guess the joke was just lost on me.
Okay. I hate you.